I was never the favorite. I don't say that for sympathy or to sound like some bitter daughter at a family therapy session. I say it because it's a fact. Like the sky is blue, like water is wet, like my father loved my brother more than he ever loved me. Growing up, I thought I just had to work harder. If I got straight A's, maybe he would look at me the way he looked at my brother Jake. If I made varsity soccer, if I got into a good college, if I landed a respectable job, maybe then he would say he was proud of me without me having to pull it out of him like a rotten tooth. But it never came. Not really. My dad was a successful real estate developer in Connecticut. We lived in a big colonial house in West Hartford with black shutters and a porch that wrapped around the whole thing. He drove a black Range Rover and wore suits that my mom picked out for him. He was handsome in that stern, gray-haired way that made people nervous. He didn't laugh much, but when he did, it was loud and sudden like a crack of thunder. My mom died when I was 15, ovarian cancer. She was the softness in our house, the one who remembered birthdays, who put notes in my lunchbox, who held my hand when I cried. After she was gone, the house got quiet. My dad got quieter, and Jake and I were left to figure out how to exist in the space she used to fill. Jake was 2 years older than me. He was golden. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a lacrosse star with an easy smile that made people trust him instantly. He never had to try. Things just happened for Jake. Scholarships, prom king, a finance job right out of college at some fancy firm in Boston. He married his college girlfriend, a petite brunette named Chloe, who laughed at every joke he made and looked at him like he hung the moon. I was the opposite. Dark hair, sharp edges, too serious. I got good grades, but I worked for them. I stayed up late. I argued with teachers. I cried over B's. My dad called me intense. He said it like it was a flaw. I became a nurse. It was practical, helpful, a job that required sacrifice, but not ambition. My dad nodded when I told him and said, "That's nice, honey. That's nice." Like I had chosen a hobby instead of a career. I lived in a small apartment in New Haven. It was cramped and the radiator made a banging sound every winter, but it was mine. I paid for it myself. I filled it with plants and mismatched furniture from thrift stores. It was quiet, but I liked it that way. My dad never visited. Not once. He said the city was too busy, too dirty, too far from his golf course. But he drove to Boston 3 times a year to see Jake and Chloe and their 2 perfect children, a boy and a girl, who looked like they belonged in a catalog. I told myself I didn't care. I built a life. I had friends. I dated a few men. None of them stuck. There was a paramedic named Matt who lasted a year. He said I was too closed off, too scared to let anyone in. He was probably right. I let him go without a fight. Then my dad got sick. It started with a cough that wouldn't go away, then weight loss, then a scan. Lung cancer, stage 4. It had spread to his liver, his bones, his brain, before anyone even noticed. He was never a smoker, but he worked on a contaminated site in the 80s before anyone knew better. That was the story, anyway. Jake called me on a Tuesday night. I was eating takeout Thai on my couch, watching some reality show about housewives. The call felt heavy before I even answered. "Dad's sick, Megan. Really sick." I drove to West Hartford the next morning. The house looked the same. The black shutters, the white trim, the big oak tree in the front yard where my mom used to hang a swing. But something felt smaller, tired. My dad was in the master bedroom downstairs. He couldn't do stairs anymore. A hospital bed sat where their old king used to be. He looked shrunken. His skin was gray. His eyes were still sharp, though. He looked at me like he was measuring something. "You came," he said. "Of course I came, Dad." He nodded like that surprised him. Jake was there, sitting in a leather chair by the window with his laptop open, pretending to work. Chloe was arranging flowers in a vase on the dresser. The kids were with her parents. The whole scene felt like a performance, like we were all playing roles in a movie about a dying father. I took a leave from work, unpaid. My savings would take a hit, but I didn't care. I wanted to be there. I wanted to prove something. To him or to myself, I wasn't sure. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of my life. I bathed him, I changed his sheets, I held his hand when the pain got bad and he couldn't hide it anymore. I sat with him through chemo appointments that left him vomiting into a plastic basin. I read to him from the newspaper. I made him smoothies he could barely swallow. Jake visited on weekends. He would fly in from Boston on Friday night and leave Sunday afternoon. He brought bagels, he told funny stories about the kids, he made my dad laugh. Then he would go back to his life, and I would stay. Chloe came once. She brought a casserole and hugged me too tight and said, "You're so strong, Megan, so strong." I wanted to scream. I didn't want to be strong. I wanted someone to take over. I wanted my dad to look at me and say, "Thank you." I wanted him to see me. But he just got sicker. One night in late October, he asked me to sit with him after I gave him his meds. The room was dark except for a small lamp on his nightstand. His breathing was shallow. His hands were cold. "Megan," he said. His voice was a whisper. "I'm here, Dad. You've been good to me." I almost cried right there. It was the closest thing to a compliment he had given me in years. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" He closed his eyes. "For not being what you needed." I didn't know what to say, so I just held his hand until he fell asleep. He died 3 days later. I was the one holding his hand when he took his last breath. Jake was on a plane. He landed an hour later. He cried at the bedside. I didn't. I was too tired, too hollow. The funeral was at a church in West Hartford. It was cold, the kind of cold that gets in your bones and stays there. People came in dark suits and murmured condolences. They told me how much I looked like my mom. They told me my dad was a good man. I smiled and nodded and shook hands until my face hurt. Jake gave a eulogy. He talked about fishing trips and baseball games and how my dad taught him to shake hands like a man. Everyone laughed and cried. It was beautiful. I sat in the front row with my hands folded in my lap and felt invisible. After the funeral, we went back to the house for the reading of the will. The lawyer was a man named Mr. Harrison. He had known my dad for 30 years. He sat at the dining room table with a leather folder and a solemn expression. Jake and Chloe sat on one side. I sat on the other. The house was full of food from neighbors, casseroles and cookies and fruit baskets that no one would eat. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. He read the legal language quickly, like he wanted it to be over. The house went to Jake. The investment accounts went to Jake. The Range Rover went to Jake. The lake house in Vermont went to Jake. I got a life insurance policy worth $50,000 and a box of my mom's old jewelry that had been sitting in a safe deposit box for 15 years. $50,000. It wasn't nothing. It would cover my student loans. Maybe a down payment on a small condo somewhere, but compared to what Jake got, a portfolio worth millions, it was a slap in the face. I sat there with my hand shaking. I felt a hot pressure behind my eyes, but I didn't cry. I would not give them that satisfaction. Jake looked uncomfortable. He kept glancing at me, then away. Chloe reached over and squeezed his hand. They had already known. Of course they had. My dad probably told them months ago. "Megan," Mr. Harrison said softly, "there was also a letter. Your father asked me to give this to you after the reading." He pulled a cream-colored envelope from the folder. It had my name on it, in my dad's handwriting. Megan. I took it. The paper felt thick and expensive. I tucked it into my purse without opening it. I couldn't do it there, not in front of them. I left the house 10 minutes later. I drove back to New Haven in the dark. The highway was empty. My phone buzzed with text from Jake. "Call me. I know you're upset. Let's talk." I ignored all of them. My apartment felt smaller than I remembered. The plants were wilting, the radiator was banging, I sat on my couch for a long time, just holding the envelope. I turned it over in my hands. I traced the letters of my name. Finally, I opened it. There were 2 pages. The letter was dated 6 months before he died. His handwriting was shaky but legible. The words were careful, like he had written them slowly. Dear Megan, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for a lot of things. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that I loved Jake more. You're thinking that I never saw you, never appreciated you, never said the words you needed to hear. You're right. I didn't. And that's my failure, not yours. You were always so much like your mother. Fierce, independent, unwilling to settle for less than the truth. I didn't know how to love that, because it reminded me of everything I lost. Every time I looked at you, I saw her, and it hurt too much. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. The reason I left everything to Jake is complicated, but I need you to know it wasn't because I loved him more. It was because I trusted you more. He's going to lose it all, Megan. The money, the house, everything. He doesn't know how to hold on to things. He never learned. He's charming, and everyone loves him, but charm doesn't pay the bills when luck runs out. And his luck will run out. I've seen the signs. I made him the beneficiary on paper, but I made you the beneficiary of something else. There is a second will. It's with Mr. Harrison. He has instructions to release it only if Jake fails to maintain the properties, or if he tries to sell them within 5 years of my death. The second will leaves everything to you. Everything. I didn't tell you about this because I needed you to be free. I needed you to live your life without waiting for my approval or my money. You never needed me, Megan. That's why I couldn't give you what you wanted. Because you were already whole. But I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. I just didn't know how to say it. Your mother would be proud too. Read the rest of this letter carefully. There are details about the second will and what you need to do if the time comes. And check the box of jewelry. There's something in there that belongs to you. I love you, Megan. I'm sorry I didn't say it enough. Dad. I read the letter 3 times, then a 4th. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. Tears ran down my face, hot, messy tears that I didn't try to stop. I set the letter down and went to the box of jewelry. It was a small wooden box with a brass latch. My mom kept it on her dresser when I was a kid. I opened it slowly. Inside were her engagement ring, a pearl necklace, some silver earrings I remembered from my childhood, and underneath, a velvet pouch, was a key. A small brass key, with a tag attached. The tag said one word: lockbox. I called Mr. Harrison the next morning. He answered on the first ring, like he was expecting me. I read the letter, he said quietly. Your father was a complicated man. Where is the lockbox? I asked. It's in my office safe. I can have it for you by tomorrow. But Megan, you need to understand what this means. The second will is valid. I drafted it myself. But triggering it requires evidence. Evidence that Jake has mismanaged the estate or attempted to liquidate assets prematurely. What kind of evidence? Bank records. Maintenance violations. A sale agreement dated within 5 years of your father's death. Something concrete. I thanked him and hung up. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that went cold while I stared at the wall. I didn't want to destroy my brother. He was all I had left, the only other person who remembered what it was like to grow up in that house. But the letter was clear. My dad had seen something in Jake, something I had missed. I started watching. It wasn't hard. Jake was careless. He always had been. He listed the Vermont lake house on Zillow 6 months after the funeral. I got an alert because I had saved the property years ago, dreaming about summer weekends that never happened. The listing price was $2.4 million. I called Mr. Harrison. He told me to screenshot everything: the listing, the date, the price. He said this was enough to start the process, but I hesitated. Jake was still my brother. We grew up in the same house. We ate the same cereal on Saturday mornings. We fought over the TV remote. He taught me to ride a bike. He let me cry on his shoulder when Mom died, even though he was just a kid himself. How do you destroy someone you love? I didn't make a decision right away. I let the screenshots sit on my phone. I let the weeks pass. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it alone with a rotisserie chicken and a bottle of wine. Jake texted me a picture of the family at Chloe's parents' house. Everyone was smiling. Everyone looked happy. Christmas was worse. I drove to West Hartford because Jake invited me. He said it would be good to spend the holiday together in the old house. I wanted to say no, but something pulled me back. Maybe nostalgia, maybe loneliness. Maybe I just wanted to see if the house still felt like home. It didn't. Chloe had redecorated. The living room was all beige and white now. No color, no personality. She had taken down my mom's paintings and replaced them with abstract prints from HomeGoods. The kitchen had new marble countertops and a faucet that looked like it belonged in a hotel. It wasn't our house anymore. It was theirs. The kids were cute, I'll give them that. They ran around in matching pajamas and opened presents with screaming joy. Jake grilled steaks on the barbecue, even though it was freezing outside. He drank too much whiskey and told stories about Dad that made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. After the kids went to bed, Jake and I sat in the living room. Chloe was in the kitchen cleaning up. The fire was burning. The tree was lit. It should have been perfect. "How are you really doing, Megan?" he asked. "I'm fine." "Come on, I know you're pissed about the will." I looked at him. His face was open, earnest, that golden boy sincerity that had always worked on everyone. "I'm not pissed," I said. "You should be. It wasn't fair. Dad and I talked about it before he died. I told him to split things evenly. He wouldn't listen." My heart started beating faster.
"You talked to him about it?" "Yeah. He was stubborn. Said you didn't need the money. Said you were strong. I didn't agree with him, Megan. You have to believe me." I did believe him. That's what made it so hard. Jake wasn't a villain. He was just a guy who had never been told no. A guy who thought love meant giving someone everything. He didn't understand that my dad's refusal to give me anything was its own kind of twisted love. I changed the subject. I asked about the lake house. His face flickered, just for a second. But I saw it. "We're thinking about selling," he said. "It's too much upkeep. And with work and the kids, we never get up there." "You're selling it?" "Probably. It doesn't make sense to keep it." I nodded. I didn't say anything about the listing. I didn't mention the screenshots on my phone. I just sat there in the beige living room with the fire crackling and felt something inside me break. He was going to do it. He was going to sell everything. The house in Vermont. Probably this house too, eventually. He would cash out and move to Boston full-time, and the last pieces of my childhood would disappear. I left the next morning. I hugged the kids. I hugged Chloe. I hugged Jake. He felt warm and solid and familiar. I wanted to hate him. I couldn't. On the drive back to New Haven, I called Mr. Harrison. "Do it," I said. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." The legal process took 8 months. Jake fought it at first. He hired a lawyer. He claimed I was manipulating the will.
He said I had poisoned Dad against him. He said terrible things about me in legal documents that I had to read in my apartment alone at night. Chloe called me once. She was crying. She said I was destroying their family. She said I was jealous and bitter and that their kids would never speak to me again. I let her talk. I didn't defend myself. What was the point? The evidence was overwhelming. Jake had tried to sell the lake house. He had let the maintenance on the West Hartford property lapse. The roof was leaking, the driveway was cracking. He had taken a loan against one of the investment accounts to pay for a renovation on his Boston home. All of it violated the terms of the original will. The judge ruled in my favor. Everything went to me. The house, the lake house, the investment accounts, the Range Rover, everything. Jake lost it all. He called me the night after the ruling. He was drunk. I could hear it in his voice. "I hope you're happy," he said. "I'm not happy, Jake. You always had to win. Always. Even when we were kids. You couldn't just let me have something. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Dad left me everything fair and square, and you stole it." "I didn't steal anything. I followed his wishes." "His wishes? He was dying, Megan. He wasn't thinking straight. You know that. You manipulated him. You were there every day whispering in his ear while I was stuck in Boston, trying to provide for my family." I closed my eyes. I wanted to tell him about the letter. I wanted to explain, but I knew it wouldn't matter. He would never believe me. He needed me to be the villain. It was the only way he could survive losing everything. "I'm sorry," I said. "Me too. Don't call me again." He hung up. That was 2 years ago. I haven't spoken to him since. I've seen pictures on social media through mutual friends. He and Chloe moved to a smaller house in a less expensive town. He took a job at a different firm. They look fine. They look normal, but the kids don't smile the same way anymore. There's something behind their eyes, something careful. I still work as a nurse. I didn't quit when the money came through. The money doesn't matter. It never did. What mattered was being seen, being chosen, being enough. I'm in therapy now. My therapist's name is Dr. Chen. She has kind eyes and a calm voice. She tells me that my dad's choices weren't my fault, that Jake's anger isn't my responsibility, that I deserve to build a life that isn't defined by either of them. I'm trying. Some days are better than others. Some days I wake up in the big colonial house and I feel like an imposter, like I'm playing house in someone else's life. Other days I walk through the rooms and I feel my mom in the sunlight, and I feel my dad in the creaking floors, and I think maybe this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I've started dating someone. His name is David. He's a social worker. He's gentle in a way I didn't know I needed. He doesn't push. He doesn't expect me to be anything other than what I am. He came to the lake house with me once. He held my hand on the dock and didn't say anything. He just sat there, present, patient, real. I don't know if we'll last. I don't know if anything lasts, but I'm learning to be okay with not knowing. The other day, I went through my mom's jewelry box again. I had missed something. Tucked into the lining at the bottom was a photograph. It was old and faded. The edges were soft. It was my mom and dad on their wedding day. They were young. They were smiling. They looked happy. On the back, my mom had written something in her flowing cursive. "No matter what happens, we will always be a family." I stared at that photograph for a long time. I thought about Jake. I thought about the kids. I thought about Christmas mornings and summer nights and all the moments that had disappeared like smoke. I put the photograph back in the box. I closed the latch. I set it on the dresser where my mom used to keep it. Then I called Jake. He didn't answer. I didn't leave a voicemail. I just wanted to hear the ring. I wanted to know his number still worked. I wanted to know there was still a thread connecting us, even if it was thin as spider silk. Maybe someday he'll call back. Maybe he won't. Either way, I'm done waiting for someone to choose me. I choose myself. That's what my dad's letter really gave me. Not the house, not the money, not the revenge. It gave me permission to stop begging for love that came with conditions, and that's worth more than all of it. The key is still on my nightstand. I don't need it anymore, but I keep it anyway. A reminder that sometimes the most important things are hidden, that love can look like cruelty, that trust can look like abandonment, that the people who hurt us the most are often the ones who loved us the worst. I'm not broken anymore. I'm just human. And that's enough.